Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Wherever you are on our amazing planet. I'm Ariel.
I'm Shia.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. This is a new moment, a new you.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, today's episode
You're looking
is...
very beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Today's episode is Let Curiosity Drive. And it was fun. I turned on the timer just so we have a rough idea how long this segment goes. And when I turned, I'm curious about this person seated in front of me. I mean, you can...
I'm enjoying your hair.
I'm enjoying yours too. We're getting ready for a haircut soon.
I know we are.
Yeah. You know, you can treat your home, where you work, the street you live on, the person seated in front of you as same old, same old.
Or you could discover who's there newly, and then a 38-year romance is still romantic rather than, oh, it's you again.
And if you're not in a relationship, you could treat the person you see in the mirror with curiosity.
And discover who you are, not through the story you've told yourself over the years, but by actually looking and seeing. You know, they may be pretty spectacular, really.
If you haven't been with us before, and even if you have, we have a few things to let you know. First, we do finish each other's sentences. Second, we're not going anywhere.
You know, it's interesting. I picked up our kitty cat this morning.
Mm.
And I just held her. Now, initially, she didn't like the idea. But then she got used to me holding her. And I started to see how magnificent a little being and creature this cat is. You know, otherwise it's just a cat. But when you really look, you discover the amazing different markings in her fur and her curiosity over sounds and movement. It's just very wild if you're there for it.
Yeah, we have some sort of creature in our wall right now. Don't know whether or not it's...
I believe it's a mouse.
Probably a mouse something. And her level of curiosity, just staring at a wall, is wonderful.
I think there's a intuition in cats, or a instinct of, that sound is a dinner bell for them.
Right.
And so they're really interested in that kind of sound. Because I try to imitate sounds of like little critters, and it doesn't work as well.
Right, she has no interest.
She doesn't, right. But when it's a natural, she gets very, very interested.
So for this format, probably the easiest way to harness your curiosity is to use your ears. Really listen. I know Shai and I are talking back and forth. Pretty soon we have a couple guests who will be coming on. It's about having an interest in what's happening in your life rather than the internal commentary in your thought process.
And that commentary normally is about your preferences. Is this something that is of interest to you?
How can this help me?
Right. What if there's no place to get to, and in this moment, we're granting you a gift from God called you're perfect. So you don't have to try to change anything about you or fix anything about you. You can just listen to this podcast and enjoy yourself, or not. Yeah, I add the caveat "or not" because
if we want you to enjoy yourself, we've given you a directive, and also we've given you something to potentially resist. And if we look at our approach, which is transformational or anthropological, it's about noticing what is rather than driving toward your preferences. And there are three basic principles to instantaneous transformation.
First one is anything you resist, anything you don't like, anything you wish were different, persists, grows stronger, and dominates your life.
So if you have a physical sensation, you resist it. it dominates that moment. If there's an individual in your life or a political figure that you are, or a world situation. I mean, COVID is certainly
Something to resist.
Yes, it exists. It's a fact, and you resist it. Then that's all your thought processes
Go to,
and it dominates your life. Third principle.
So
that was the first.
We're skipping to the third.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, third principle is anything that you see and allow to be exactly as it is. So you don't resist it, you don't agree or disagree with it, you just notice it. It will complete itself in an instant. And an instant doesn't happen in time. An instant is outside of time. It's like a molecule of water at 32 degrees
Fahrenheit
becomes ice in an instant. There's a radical transformation that takes place that's instantaneous from 33 degrees to 32 degrees. It goes from liquid to solid, and that's just the way it is in an instant. You can't see it happen. Now, of course, if you look at a puddle out on the street, you can see that some areas crystallize and some areas stay liquid, but that's because you're not looking at a molecule, you're looking at a whole bunch of water. And that happens over time. So maybe transformation is paradoxical.
So let's do the second principle, and then we'll grab our guest, because we'd love to hear from her.
You can't be different than you are in the current moment of your life.
Just like that. Any given moment, it's like a snapshot in time. If we were to freeze frame you in any snapshot in time, however we caught you in that freeze frame is how you are. It includes all your life circumstances. And this is where you get to let go of your intellect. You get to be curious about how you are rather than have an internal conversation that judges, evaluates, puts it on the ledger page of good, bad, right, wrong, better, worse.
What I notice about this, Hope, is that this borders on working on oneself, in that you can be doing all this for a goal somewhere in the future to be a better you.
Do you mean being curious?
All of it.
Yeah.
You can do being curious as a manipulation of your circumstance to fix what you consider broken, or you can just enjoy being where you are right now, the way you are right now.
Yeah, actually, as you say that, and I know we have our first guest waiting, but this morning I woke up and I was feeling markedly uncurious. Like I didn't have a lot of interest in a lot of things, and I got curious
about your lack of interest.
Yeah, it was a curious moment. Shall we call in our guest?
Yes, please.
All right, we have Pazia is with us today.
Hello.
Hi, Pazia. Where are you?
I am in Sydney, Australia.
Welcome.
And that is a virtual background, yes?
That's right.
For those of you who are listening to this podcast and can't see it, she's got palm trees. She's got an ocean that has waves breaking behind her.
Green water, blue sky.
Places where most of us haven't seen for a long, long time.
Right.
That is right. I'm really enjoying this virtual background.
What can we do for you today, Lovey?
I was reading the subject of this call and putting intellectual on the back seat and putting intellectual on the back seat and having curiosity as the driver doesn't quite compute to me in my head from a work intellectual perspective.
Well, darling, you're trying to get somewhere.
So are you asking this in a work framework?
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that quite work out from a workspace perspective?
Well, in a nutshell, what is your job?
I
Just a short description of what you do for
I'm
work.
an IT consultant, so I specializes in migrating of data from an old system into a new system. That's and also specializes in putting together activities when we switch off an old system and switching on the new system, what's required. So
Right.
that's the short of what I'm doing.
Okay, so if you're getting distracted by not meeting your time goals, you think you get more or less efficient?
Less efficient.
Less efficient, because more of your hard drive is occupied with what's not happening than what is happening.
Your mental hard
Right.
drive.
Okay.
So let's say you have
Thank you for clarifying that.
System X, and you're migrating it to a new system, System Y. Like, why not? Let's do this one. And you've migrated for 5 other companies from System X to System Y. And now you're working for my company. And if you come from what you know, rather than being curious about my setup, chances are you're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Well, there'll be false assumptions about what our system needs based on what you know, rather than getting interested and curious about the peculiarities of our system.
And in that is also the user, the people who you are working with, being curious about their aptitude, their level of engagement, what they want. But I also find it interesting, Pazia, that the main area that you often migrate to in your thoughts intellectually is work. And I get interested or curious about everything you do and how you approach your life outside of work. And it is likely to inform you about things that you've never even considered as far as places where you're really skilled at work, or places where you might be cutting corners or missing, because our experience is how a person intersects with their life is how they intersect with their life. So if they turn their attention to work, it'll be similar to how they turn their attention to relationship, their dishes, doing the bed.
Right. Okay.
See, it's difficult to answer your question because your question is rather abstruse
or hypothetical.
It doesn't give us any entryway into you. It's more about, let's talk about this hypothetical thing,
surface potential problem,
so that we don't have to talk about me.
Oh. Right.
Oh.
Okay.
You see that? You're asking us to talk about something hypothetical, not a concrete something in this moment.
Now that's interesting.
Because
I'd get curious about that.
I would be willing to bet that your intellect saves you from being vulnerable.
That's right. That you can get lost in thought about things rather than be where you are. And it's a safety valve where intimacy might be frightening. It's so much easier to get lost in a project at work.
That is so true. Hearing you said that, something just melted, and it so resonate with me right now. Oh my God.
Yeah, good for you.
Wow.
You know, mine's tricky.
Wow. That is so amazing.
Thanks, Kezia.
Yeah, thank you, Pizia. That's
Lovely
great.
being with you today.
And thanks for being willing to allow yourself to discover something new in the moment rather than try to figure out how the future is going to show.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you. I mean, yes, but thank you very, very much. I mean, I love transformation. Being over in Sydney, you know what? With COVID, I'm getting more of that. Because
More of what?
of joining workshops, more of doing the weekends, because I do it from Zoom, and I guess the hours works better for me. So on one hand, COVID is not so great, but it's great on the other hand.
Yes, it's been wonderful. I mean, I know that you're often joining in when it's the middle of the night where you are, and you'll. I love your approach of pretending that you're staying awake on a night flight. Well done, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Ariel and Shaya. Great speaking to you.
Yeah, you too, sweetheart.
Alrighty then. Drum roll, please. You sound like our cat. It's time for our listener feedback spotlight while Shai is here purring with me. We get to hear from one of our listeners
about how transformation has impacted their lives. And if you'd like to learn more or register for any of our upcoming courses, visit transformationmadeeasy.com.
Yeah.
And when I say easy, it's like the fire swamp.
Yeah, join us.
If you know your way through it, it's easy. If you have a good guide, it's easy. If you don't, well, there's rodents of unusual size. There's lightning sand.
Oh,
all those things.
I don't remember.
Oh, and the fire spurts. Right.
There you go.
There you go.
We're great
Transformation made easy.com.
This is Dima from Cologne in Germany. Sometimes I'm worried about the future, about different things. And what listening to Ariel and Shaya does to me is to lift the burden that I feel that this sorrow and worrying brings. And I always feel lighter, so to speak, and very much free, and I can enjoy life again.
If you would like to experience an expanded sense of well-being, join us. Connect with people all over the world from the comfort of your own home at Ariel and Shaya's lively interactive global video seminars. Participate in any of their 2-hour online events or take a deep dive into the magic of being you at a virtual weekend seminar. Come on, let's connect. Find out more and register at transformationmadeeasy.com.
We have some upcoming courses. The first is happening in November on the 21st and 22nd.
And these courses are virtual via Zoom, and
that's how Pezia joins us.
That's right. And they're incredibly practical, effective, and Zoom is truly amazing. I'm so impressed with the quality, excuse me, of people's lives as a result of attending the Zoom seminars that we've been doing.
Just in time for the holidays, we're doing Discover the Healer in You on November 21st and 22nd. It is a Saturday and Sunday.
You know,
Mhm.
for those of you in the United States, Thanksgiving this year,
Is right after that.
due to COVID, is something that most of us will not be traveling to participate in with our families, given the epidemic that has happened here, or pandemic, but which is everywhere. And this is a great opportunity to discover another reality, another possibility for you in these times, that it would be nice if everything were the same. But in fact, nothing's the same anymore.
So you can get curious as to how you can impact the environment, how you can take care of your own well-being during these times of isolation. And it's all very new. In December, on the 2nd, 9th, and 16th, it's the first 3 Wednesdays, Susan Finch and I will be leading a fun course called Speak Up in the evenings.
Now, who's Susan Finch?
She is a world-renowned speech teacher. She actually launched the speech department at NYU like 30 years ago. She's very, very talented. If any of you have accents that make it hard for you to be understood, you can also contact her privately.
But the course is more about self-expression.
It's
and
going to be
being willing
fun.
to discover how to have fun with your life.
Yes. Should we take our next?
Fun with your life. That's a good, I like that.
Fun with your life. I like it too.
Yeah.
Let's have our next
Caller.
yes,
Guest.
let's have our guest. Marin, hi.
Hi, Maren.
Hi there. This is Maren from Brussels, Belgium.
Hi.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. When I read the title of the show, the first thought that came to mind was the English saying, "Curiosity killed the cat." Also, because you speak about your kitten baby.
Well, you know, that's a good statement, because curiosity will kill your beliefs. See, you may have beliefs and assumptions that you make from what you believe to be true, and that is the lens through which you look at life. So you're not really looking at life, you're looking through this lens of your beliefs as to what's true and what's not. And if you get really curious, you'll look at life directly, not through what you've been taught, not through other people's beliefs, not through your prejudices, but through the being that you are.
I do believe that having been an observer of our kitten and also, having cats at some time, the curiosity kills the cat also came from that cats are not only curious, but they are instinctual. They have reflexes. So if you run something in front of them and they go to investigate it, they could get themselves into trouble. But
Hit by cars.
they have to. They don't have
choice.
It's not like they really have choice.
They don't have a logic system. That, if something moves, they're attracted to it.
So we're not talking about throwing away your intellect. We're talking about allowing it to take a back seat, because most of us are trying to figure out our lives rather than living it.
Yeah, because as you say that curiosity kills the cat, it sounds as though you're looking for a reason not to be curious, but to be safe. And that's the mind. The mind is a survival machine. Its interest is its survival, its point of view survival, and by the way, yours, but that's only incidental, because the mind will sacrifice your life to be right. And you see that when somebody's car starts rolling down the hill and they run in front of it to try to stop it.
It's so true what you say there. I've been observing
myself lately, and I found that being more upset than usual has killed my curiosity. I'm trying to function. I have this checklist of getting through the day. So, and I'm trying to look for well-being by ticking boxes, saying, okay, school dinner's made, and I remind myself my loved ones are well. Okay, I can't travel to see my parents, but they're well. My sons are well. So it's like forcing myself to not be upset. And all the time I'm so upset that I'm just no
I
longer
love
curious.
that, Maren. I love it. I'll tell you what I love about it is that you are trying to tick off the boxes to unupset yourself through the same conversation that's upsetting itself.
The other thing is this: the first principle of instantaneous transformation is anything you resist will continue to upset you. See, what you resist, like being upset, well, let me ask you a question right now in this moment, Maren. Are you upset right now? Too late. Now it just went by.
It went by. Thank you.
Yes, but were you upset in that moment? See, you have to remind yourself mostly to be upset. And it always happens when you worry about how the future is going to turn out rather than be here in this moment. Now, you know, this moment is a very interesting phenomena because it's always changing. In nanoseconds, it's changing. So even though it's the way it is, it's in change at the same time. So there's a paradox there. Mm-hmm. The moment is the way it is, and yet
it's finite.
It's finite, and then it's infinite at the same time.
It's like particle and wave. You know, it's if you judge it, you stick it in time and space.
So when you say you're upset, well, then you're upset because you've decided that that's the way you are, rather than you cannot allow yourself to feel what you're feeling moment to moment. And there may be upset going through, but if you allow yourself to feel it, it completes itself.
You cannot talk yourself into well-being.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to use your intellect and you're very intelligent. I mean, you speak several different languages fluently. So there's a great deal of intelligence there, but that intelligence doesn't produce a sense of well-being. It's like the cat this morning. I picked her up and she didn't particularly want to be picked up, but I didn't care. I wanted to play with her. And so I started massaging her head and rubbing her neck and doing those things that she fell into feeling yummy rather than thinking, I got to get away from this dude.
Are you still with us? You're frozen on our screen. There you go.
You're back. You're coming a long way from Brussels. That's what it is.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. It's very windy here. It's like a storm outside, so that might be affecting the connection. Sorry.
It could.
Yes, yes.
Well, that's what you're experiencing inside too, is a storm inside. You don't, you know, the thing about storms that I love is like stopping and like listening to it. I mean, hurricane or superstorm Sandy here was like a freight train.
You know,
it was so alive.
What's really interesting is storms are never the same.
Right.
They're constantly changing.
Okay.
And so are we. And if you allow yourself to get curious about how your intellect is changing, rather than try, or not your intellect, but your experience, rather than try to change it so you feel comfortable, but get interested in what's going on without judging it, your upsets will start to dissolve very easily on their own. But upset is a function of trying to keep things as they are in a changing world.
You know, one thing I've noticed about you, Marin, because we have a lot of different interactions with you. I mean, you come to the global video seminars, which includes everybody. We do them on Monday evenings, Eastern time. We do them Saturday mornings, Eastern time. The once a month on a Tuesday evening in the European time. So we'll see Marin there, but also we have a subscription series that's currently called the Premium Excellence Club. And it includes a question and answer area where people write questions, we answer them, or we also have articles of the month, etc. And you often write in questions or you make comments on what we've said to people. It's all very lovely how engaged you are. But one of the things I've noticed about, in particular, your questions, Marin, is that they're often long, complex, and linear. So what I mean by linear is your intellect is so well developed. You go from one point to the next, to the next, to the next. So, and I suppose we all do, but I'm often really taken by when you're telling a story, it's very difficult for you to truncate the story to pull out the salient points. You have to run through the whole sequence of events to get to your question. So what might take one person a sentence or three, there's usually 2 or 3 long paragraphs. Even emails you send us that are just chatty emails have more complexity than pretty much anybody else that we interact with, which just tell us.
Well, that's the way your mind functions. So you're very, very complex in your thought process,
which makes you perfect for simultaneous translating. Now, we're speaking to you in English now, and if you were working, you could be simultaneously translating what we're doing into German. That takes holding things over time. But
True.
I have a feeling when you turn that facility on yourself,
then you start to dissect yourself rather than support yourself. You don't look for your positives, you look for your negatives. There's an automatic searching for what's wrong rather than allowing it all to be right.
And we all have
That's
the
so
facility
wow.
to be here and to run different things in our thoughts at the same time.
Well,
but yours is very well developed.
You say that's interesting, but whenever somebody says that's interesting, that interesting is intellectual. Do you see how it connects to the way you function?
Absolutely. This is so precious. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the way your mind functions, and you've been watching this TV show called
Marin's
Mind. And
good.
Thinking it's your life.
Yeah. And I love what you said about dissecting. That's so true.
But here's the thing. You get curious about this show and realize that a lot of it is not true for who you are in this moment.
But I'd be willing to bet when that thing is dissecting your life, that incredible intellect that you have, we're not talking about throwing out your intellect. We're talking about discovering that you have other facilities, like your curiosity, that are enlivening, they're valuable, they're rich. I'd be willing to bet when you're working out a problem or an issue, or even what to make for dinner, your ability to actually see what's physically in your room grays out. It's almost like, on a website, when like if you're purchasing something and you haven't filled in a field and you go to hit purchase or check out, and the checkout box is grayed out because you haven't filled something in. It's almost as if your life gets grayed out while you're in the middle of this internal conversation. You forget to breathe. You forget to feel. You forget to
Love
see the
that image.
colors around you. You forget to
Mhm.
enjoy what's actually here. You forget to actually see your son as he is because you're so worried about where he's going to college or what will happen next week, or I've got to get a, and of course we've got the things that we have to handle, but not to the exclusion of right here, right now. Shai was coming home last night from the river, and he stopped to describe to me the ground fog, that there was a differentiation between the air and the ground. It wasn't like fog bank. It was like just a fog hovering over the ground and the fields and the.
I love that you got it so completely.
I have a picture of it.
Because it was remarkable. It was like, wow, this is amazing. What a gift to be available to see this fog rising from the ground, and how thin and gossamer like it was.
Yeah.
And with the sunset behind it, it was awesome.
It was also awesome. I was on a Zoom video call when he called in on our telephone, and I excused myself because it wasn't as if my presence not being there for a moment would be disruptive. But it was really lovely to let that go and be here with Shia, because it was so rich and alive. And then I brought that richness and aliveness back to what we were doing. And people were texting me last night, thanking me for my contribution to the call, which included being curious about what Shia was calling me about.
Great. I'm feeling more relaxed physically already. I feel like I can breathe better and more relaxed. This is
Well,
great.
if you're getting tense, chances are you've been listening to that internal conversation and you just forgotten to be curious about your environment.
And that internal conversation is trying to get somewhere. It's trying to get over something. It has goals.
And we had a friend talking about that with us.
What's the other word I'm looking for?
An agenda.
Agendas. That's the other word.
Our friend Eric was telling us the other night, he was on a global video seminar with us, that he and his wife Holly went out for breakfast and for a walk, and as far as she knew, they were out for breakfast and for a walk, and he had an agenda of things he needed to accomplish and what time he wanted to get back and what he wanted to pick up and where he wanted to go. And so when she let somebody go in front of them in a coffee shop because they were clearly in a hurry, he suddenly got very upset with her, because he had a hidden agenda, hidden from him, hidden from her. And then as soon as he saw it,
it released him. See, when you see your agendas, they lose their power over you if you don't judge them. You can't not have agendas. It's just the way you've been bred.
And I'm telling you, your agendas are going to be really full blown because you are so capable of holding what's being said here and translating at the same time. You're not going to necessarily be able to turn off that facility. It's well developed. It's your job. But you can just take a breath. You can relax. You can be here. And one of the things I feel that stresses you the most is your starting premise. If you start from the premise that you've ever done something wrong in the past and that you could blow it in the future, that premise will create stress. If you start with the premise of the perfection of the moment, then you get interested in what's happening in the moment because that perfection extends to you.
Wow. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was lovely talking with Pacey and with Marin today and with you. Thank you for listening. And if you're enjoying the podcast, you can leave a review on your favorite podcast app. It helps other people to find being here. And if you feel to do it, thanks in advance.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
You ready to hear next week's show?
Sure,
it's
I am.
Perfect. Cat naps and other useful breaks. We'll be back next week.
So come on back.
And don't miss
Being
being here.